Hello, everyone, and welcome to this One Take CEO interview. This is take two with Jeff Kiesel, who joined us 1 year ago, approximately, to talk about what was going on with his company. And Jeff, thank you for joining us once again for this take two.
It's great to see you, Dale.
Same here. So, we talked back then, COVID-19 was just hitting. And we talked about some of the things that you had done to kind of deal with it at first. There were some furloughs, there were some other things going on. But since then, a lot more has happened. You've been able to do more with your company. Tell us a little bit about how did things go in terms of what you were planning back then, some surprises that came up, and how you've dealt with it in the 12 months that have gone by.
Great. We did a lot of scenario planning, as we discussed, and we had 250 folks on furloughs. And that's when we started to turn. Here's the good news. All but 7 came back to our company as we grew in the first part of this year back to our normal levels of revenue and volume. So that was a great compliment to our frontline leaders. As I look back on 2020, we made all the right moves with scenario planning, and we also did the right moves to say, hey, we've got a plan for when this thing ends. And we did a lot of work around that with our go-to-market, which I'll get into in a little bit. The most pleasant surprise that we had was the maturity, the flexibility, and the compassion of our frontline leaders.
Mm-hmm.
It's not easy to take people and eliminate jobs. It's not easy to put people on furlough, and obviously very difficult to manage schedules when you're rotating people in and out. But they did a fabulous job. And how we kept in touch with the field, predominantly myself, our head of operation, our chief people officer, is we were doing 2 to 3 virtual depot visits a week. And in that, it would be the managers plus our drivers or techs, whoever happened to be in the building at that time. And it allowed us to have a pulse of the business. It also allowed the leaders to really vent if they had a chance. They're out there lonely, working with their teams of 300 to 100. 35 to 100. And they were leading that by themselves. So it was a good way to keep the communication and be in touch with the real world.
How about with the guys coming and going from the depots? You have different shifts. And I know way back we talked about what was the best time of the day to be able to try to talk to the most number of people in the depot. And this was pre-COVID. So post-COVID or during COVID, did you do more virtual conversations or more emails with them then? Because, it used to be it was hard to even email them because they were on the road or they'd want to go home. So how did you deal with all the employees?
Well, I did a daily email,
Mm-hmm.
and that could be commenting on how the business is doing. I also had a business email, people that were employed, but I also reached out once a week to those that were furloughed if they opted in. And so that was one. Number 2, the depot visits were up to the general manager. The timing. We did some at 6 in the morning. We did some at 8 at night. And it was as the people were coming in and out. In general, it's before 7 a.m. and roughly between 12 and noon when one shift is coming in and one's going out. Those tend to be the best times.
Great. And you mentioned all but 7 came back, but 5 of those folks retired, correct?
That is correct. And just 2 had found another place to work. And it's just, it really is, be honest, just plain heartwarming that we have leaders that can engage our team all across the country. And we also have created in general a place that people like to work.
Yeah.
Also, one item, our engagement scores went up during this time frame as well.
Plus, what is your retention rate?
It's for drivers and techs. It's overall, it's in low 90s, 92, 93%. And that's pretty consistent with our drivers and techs, which is a 2 to 3% unemployment job across the U.S.
Great. And Jeff, you mentioned things have been growing. How are you doing with attracting talent, and how many positions do you have open right now? And what's it like for you to try to find those folks to come in and fill all those positions?
It's not easy. I know that our recruiting budget and our digital recruiting efforts, which are brand new, are a little bit higher than budget than we expected. So when things turned around quickly in March and April, we were a little bit behind the 8 ball. We currently have 140 openings. It peaked a little bit higher than that, but we're dropping that every week. we on average, we're hiring 15 to 20 people a week. So we're going to catch up pretty quickly, which is important. We've got a backlog in both our products, our Autonomous product, which cleans hoods, flues, and fans, and our core oil product, which automates the handling of cooking oil for our customers. So we've got a big backlog.
Yep. Now, when it comes to how you were selling, a lot of people that I've talked with during COVID have said, boy, we had to change how we sell. How do we talk with people out there? You have 3 core industry groups that you work with. How did you adapt when it comes to dealing with all those folks, and how has it gone? Some people can adapt, and meanwhile their sales are like this. Sometimes they go the other way.
Right.
How has it gone for you?
Well, number one, we did develop some digital selling skills. So having a flat PowerPoint is not very engaging. So we've learned how to embed new video. We learned how to embed the actual customer service reports that we have for our customers into our presentations. And that wasn't easy. Most outside sales folks get antsy when they're in meetings all the time or behind a screen. But the folks really bore down and adapted a new way to sell. And we're continuing that now that things are more open. And our sales folks are saying, I probably spend 50-50 time selling virtually and then selling in person. And we're going to continue to develop those skills and those skill sets with new training and new tools. But I think it's going to be that way for the next few years, I'm sure.
Yep. And how did you change? Some companies have gotten more into shared services or trying to group things more together. Others have figured out, okay, what do we do with the different verticals we have? What did you do on that front?
That's interesting, Dale. On the operations side, we have more shared services.
Mm-hmm.
So we have centralized plannings of installs and service. So when people call in, we do that. We shifted more centralization there. We shifted the opposite way on the sales customer engagement part. So we called it rebound, but we said, okay, what's the world look like in 2022 and how do we rebound and change our company to get there? Well, the first thing that was very obvious is that the segment of quick serve restaurants did very well, actually up roughly 10% during COVID time as people were just doing drive-through or delivery. And there we have 10 of our largest customers, and we were treating them like everybody else. So what we did is we looked at those 10 customers, and we have dedicated sellers to each one of those. Some teams very large, made up of 8 folks, which are a leader, outside sellers, and inside sellers. Some it's really just dedicating a high-level national account manager to own that whole business. And we did away with the matrix organization. So only those teams deal specifically with those accounts.
So like Burger King, for example. So you have a dedicated team for Burger King.
Yes, we do.
And then when you transfer that over to service, how do you make sure that they still feel like it's that dedicated service?
Well, the good news is they know who their regional seller is. Mm-hmm. And so our normal channels of calling into the 800 number, having our service folks deal with that. And again, this loops back to we centralized operations. We have faster reports to know that what our response time was for those customers. So the centralization of the operations actually streamlined our ability to be much more specific with Burger King and our other top 10.
So your dedicated sales folks also kind of like the chief client officer then for that account, so that if something's not going well when it comes to more of your centralized deployment and just upkeep, they're on it. They get that report and they say, hey, what's going on?
That's correct, Dale. And the other thing that we have is reporting specifically about that franchisee, which is something that was hard to translate if it was a local salesperson rather than a dedicated salesperson. So the dedicated salesperson could go in, they're speaking the Burger King language. We're talking the value propositions that Burger King cares about. And we're also measuring our performance against their specific service needs. And so that, again, we talked about the virtual selling techniques. We can pull those reports up live and say, here's what's going on in store 1, 2, 3.
Yep. Who led the charge on this, Jeff?
Well, it was the interim. It was a group of us. We got the sales leaders together and said, okay, these segments are winning. They have specific needs. Value propositions are getting much more specific for each one. Some are very into ESG. Some want to talk about their food. Some want to talk about their hospitality. Let's align our value propositions to those. And it was really the sales leaders. I took over as the chief commercial officer in November of last year. And we just had, the sales leaders knew what was going to work. We just needed to have a platform and quick decisions to get there.
So how's it gone? You know, when it comes to like your pipeline, your closes, your engagement, how have you tracked on those fronts?
This is really relatively remarkable. So we call them inks. So our contract signings are up between 2 and 4% each week for the last 3 months. Our wins within our Jack in the Box, Burger King, Denny's, KFC are up significantly quarter over quarter. Our penetration rates are higher, and our customer satisfaction ratings are also up higher.
Wow, it sounds like you were so busy working on those things, and congratulations on how well that's gone.
Thanks,
any thought on potential acquisitions? Because I know COVID has presented some opportunities for people based on how other companies have fared. So anything on that front that you could disclose at this point, if there was anything?
Thank you for that follow-up comment. The answer is I can't disclose, but I will say we really are predominantly an organic growth company, and if we can add more services to really complete both our automist and our oil product, we continually look at in those areas.
Yeah, and that product line came on board, what, 5 years ago, 4 years ago?
That's correct. Okay. 2018. Yeah.
And that's a great opportunity, a great expansion opportunity for people tuning in. So that's been great. You had 1,400 employees a year ago or before COVID. Yes. It looks like you dipped down to about 1,100 almost, and you're now at 1,600, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
And I would say that we'll end 2022 with another 200 folks. We hired 350 people. Some of them, of course, hired back. 350 people this year.
Sure. How are you dealing with bringing people back to the office? For those folks who have office jobs, as you know, some people are doing 2 or 3 days in the office required every week. Others are leaving it totally flexible. So where are you at?
We're more on the flexible side of things, but high encouragement for frontline leaders and next level directors to make sure that their teams that should be collaborating are collaborating. So for instance, our engineering director and our supply director are ensuring their teams are in the office 1 or 2 times a week together to make sure we're working through some things. I know our HR team is probably in more than others. The other thing that we found is having larger meetings once a month and inviting folks that normally you wouldn't see. But so for instance, I bring the sales leaders in once a month. We make sure that everybody, the managers and directors that are based out of our Mendota Heights business know that they're in, so that they can feel free to come in and collaborate and have lunch together.
Yep.
And that's what.
Collaboration, I hear from others too, that it's more about those opportunities to really make more out of those events where people get together than we did in the past.
That's correct. And the dialogue, the face-to-face, the hugs, that matters. And I don't think we're fully celebrating our culture that we have, but we certainly are making progress.
Sure. Jeff, you also have seen where some companies are saying that you can only come back to work if you've been vaccinated or show that you've had the antibodies. We've also had the mask policy issue here where it's been very polarizing. How have you dealt with first the masks, and now how are you dealing with whether people are vaccinated or not?
So it's we're a high trust environment, and we're going to follow the CDC guidelines. If somebody is not vaccinated, we expect them to wear a mask. As we've also had folks that I know are vaccinated that are wearing masks just to be safe with smaller children or people that live in their house that might be vulnerable. What we're doing as a company is that we will be using a carrot and a stick aspect with our healthcare costs, very similar to what other folks have done. We have a $75 credit for healthy living. And for us, that is making sure you have a physical once a year, making sure that you're smoke-free. So we'll begin testing for that next year, that there's number one, it's trust. The number two, we'll be testing for nicotine in blood next year, and also $75 to be vaccinated. And again, proof of certificate on that. That includes both our employee and spouse. So that's a significant amount of money.
So is that 150 or what was that total?
It's $225 per person.
Okay. Boy, that sounds great. Other companies, I think Delta took the opposite, more of a stick approach, saying you're going to have to pay more for your premiums. So yeah, that's a nice approach that you're taking there. Yeah, and I think with everything else going on with the business, I always like to ask, what did you learn this past year? When you look back, what was the biggest surprise where you're like, geez, I wish we would have thought of that earlier?
I think it was during the comeback. We were a little bit behind the curve on planning, doing a scenario plan of what if everything opened up and people reacted quickly. So I wish I had that back in February and March, us as a leadership team, and we'll spend more time on scenario planning. We have spent more time on scenario planning. So that was a miss, and it put us a little bit behind in growing faster this year as we continue to hire people.
So you were thinking that people wouldn't open up as quickly as they did, or?
Yeah, we track our cooking oil volume sold and delivered each day, and that turned almost like a hockey stick back in February as the larger states opened up. And so by April, we were 120 hires behind, and now we're a little bit below that and making great traction this fourth quarter. But we missed an opportunity there to install our backlog during the summer.
How about the thing that went well the best? What are you most proud of?
It's got to be our frontline leaders and the way that we've managed through the downturn and the upturn, and our culture stays pretty much the same. I think that's just a great opportunity. I think also the change readiness of our company as we changed our go-to-market strategy from a highly matrix field seller organization to very dedicated segment orientation. And number one, it's been successful. Number two, it gave a great opportunity for the sales folks to do something new, and we have all new promotion and career opportunities as we change how we go to market.
I've been inside some companies where IT gets priority, and it's wonderful. I've been inside companies where it's the opposite. And people are like, if I only had the tools, if I only had the right software. How did you deal with that in the last 18 months? And how have you been able to, like you've talked about how you've changed things and empowered your sales folks to be able to do things more virtually. What did you have to do in terms of IT spend and bringing in different software and solutions?
That's a great question. Back in this time, September, October timeframe of 2020, myself and CFO were walking around one of the lakes at our one-on-one meeting, and we were getting a boatload of, I need this from IT, I need this from IT, all the projects that you get during budget process. And we looked at each other and said, this is nuts. Because we have sales looking at their vertical, service looking at theirs, IT having their own set of priorities. And we just said, okay, if we're changing our go-to-market strategy, we're becoming much more customer in. We've got to be more horizontal and simple in our thinking around IT and job construction. So with that, we started a process called our EBP, or Enterprise Business Process, where we're looking at being customer in and horizontal. So wherever the customer enters, be it from customer service, be it from a salesperson, they're going to have the same set of information that they can meet the customer needs and where they are and how they want to deal with us, be it online or over the phone. And as we constructed that, we have a 2.5-year plan laid out. So this is the other aspect of being change ready. So we have go to market where we want to get faster growth. We have our EBP to be customer in and horizontal and how we trade information, much simpler, one system rather than 5 different types of systems. So all of a sudden our jobs are getting simpler and better. So now we can be more proactive with our customers rather than reactive. And the other thing that does for us, it creates better jobs, better career opportunities as we continue to grow. Let's not stare and compare and shift things over with Google Docs and Excel spreadsheets. I have the information I need. Let me start thinking around the corner, how I can make our company better. So that's another big change that all of our employees have embraced. It's good for them. Better for the customer, better for our teams, better for how we work, better for careers.
That sounds wonderful. Everybody, oftentimes you have the mishmash of different things that people are using. What's the holy grail in this situation in terms of where you can take all that into just one platform, one software ERP system? What is it that you're using?
Well, what we're doing right now is first we did the processes and then we compared, okay, what's the best platform for us? And for us, it's salesforce.com on the sales and the service aspect.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Well, Jeff, we went through a lot. What did I not ask you that we should have talked about?
I'm glad you didn't ask what the heck's going to happen in 2024.
Yep.
But thanks.
Yeah. And then 2023, I guess that's a whole other thing, but I just really appreciate your time. Congratulations on how well things have gone. I know this hasn't been easy. And that would be my last question is, how have you dealt with this personally? How have you made sure you've stayed healthy, both physically and mentally through all this?
Thanks. Number one, my mental health gets better the more I exercise. So that's kind of the core. The other is we really have a great team here, and we can finish each other's sentences. And some of the folks have been with us, for less than a year. So I'm very thankful for my work team, but also, my wife, my family. Just we've gotten to know each other as we've been very close during COVID as being in our pod. You just learn to know, okay, this person needs a little bit of space, this one doesn't, so I think we've worked through that quite a bit. And then reaching out to, friends that, maybe I've lost touch with, that's been a good way to kind of not get caught up in my own little world.
That sounds good. Well, Jeff, thank you very much for joining us today.
Pleasure. Great to see you, Dale.
Same here. And I also want to thank everybody else for tuning in today. We'll see you next time on One Take.